The last thing I expected on the morning I was about to pitch a $50 million marketing campaign was to be publicly shamed for my sneakers. "You'll need to go home and change, Melody. Sneakers aren't appropriate for this agency," Mr. Sterling declared, his voice dripping with condescension, one hand dramatically placed on the company's dress code policy, like he was about to banish me to corporate Siberia. Never mind that they were sleek, designer, and frankly, far more stylish than the scuffed loafers he wore every single day. No, this wasn't about footwear. This was about power, a clear message, a well-timed corporate jab right before I presented the campaign strategy I'd spent the last 4 months perfecting. I stood there, clutching my tablet, the mock-ups glowing on the screen like a powerful secret weapon I wasn't allowed to use. The conference room door closed behind me with the ominous thud of a vault door. I didn't argue, didn't storm out. I simply smiled, nodded, and walked the polished marble hallway of Paragon Marketing like a condemned woman already plotting her escape. I didn't go home. I walked straight past the elevators and out into the humid warmth of a New York City August. I took a sharp left to the Daily Grind coffee shop down the street, settled into my usual corner booth, and texted Chloe one word: "Launch." She replied with a gif of a victorious fist pump and immediately video called me, her bright pink hair a joyful mess. "Wait, launch as in now? Like right now?" "Effective immediately," I said, logging into the secure platform we'd been building on nights and weekends, always one click away from a potential lawsuit. But it was ours. Every line of copy, every design element, every glitch we had crushed with late-night energy drinks and creative curses, it was all sitting in the cloud, waiting to come alive. I registered Spark Creative LLC on my phone between bites of an everything bagel. I transferred the final iteration of the campaign prototype to our private servers. I scheduled a wipe of my Paragon-issued laptop for midnight, then composed the most satisfying resignation letter I'd ever written. It was professional, precise, and cold enough to freeze over hell. I set it to auto-send at 10:03 a.m., 3 minutes into the meeting I was supposed to lead. The email subject line: "A new standard." Chloe snorted when she saw it. "Melody, I love it." I was halfway through wiring our freelance copywriter in advance when my personal inbox pinged, a name I hadn't seen in over a year. Richard Stone, former mentor turned venture capitalist. His subject line: "Still crafting something revolutionary?" Attached was a calendar invite for coffee the following week. I hadn't replied before. This time, I didn't hesitate. And then, because corporate pettiness is an ecosystem all its own, I checked the Paragon Slack channel I still had access to and saw Sterling had already posted the campaign update, my pitch deck, my mock-ups, his initials prominently in the file name. "We have standards," he'd said. "Yeah," I thought. "I've got one now too. It's called a standard for genuine impact." By noon, I'd cracked open my third cold brew and was sweating through my blazer like a fugitive on a cross-country train. Chloe was already sending me links to trendy co-working spaces and asking if we could afford fancy stationery and ergonomic chairs. I told her no, we'd have to pick one and barter for the other, like it was the damn Oregon Trail. The resignation email hit Sterling's inbox with all the subtlety of a lightning strike. Time-stamped, legally bulletproof, and CC'd to HR, legal, and one intern who had once brought me a croissant when I worked through lunch. No response, just a Slack message from a former team lead. "Holy cow, did you really just resign during the pitch?" "Yes, Dave. Yes, I did." I broke up with corporate America in the middle of a video call and didn't even mute myself first. Chloe and I had talked about starting Spark Creative for years, but always in the safe, fantastical way you talk about quitting your job and moving to Costa Rica. Now, it was no longer hypothetical. It was happening right here, between a flickering neon sign and a barista named Kevin who looked like he choreographed his latte art. We opened our shared drive and made it real. The folder changed from personal projects to Spark Creative Productions. I transferred the core assets, encrypted our client notes, and stripped every last piece of proprietary data that might point back to Paragon. Our baby had officially moved out of the basement, and that's when the fear punched me in the gut. No steady salary, no health benefits, no IT support team to blame when the servers crashed. Just me, Chloe, a graphic designer with a penchant for bright colors, and a business registration certificate I downloaded from a legal website. I stared at the blinking cursor in a new browser tab. The venture capitalist invite from Richard still sat there like an unopened gift in a dusty attic. I hadn't RSVP'd for weeks because I assumed it would lead to disappointment. Like every other time, I'd put myself out there with a half-baked idea and walked away with nothing but a lukewarm handshake and a pity follow on LinkedIn. But now, screw it. I clicked accept and picked the earliest slot. I didn't need money yet. I needed access, information, connections. If Richard could get me 5 minutes in front of someone at Visionary Brands, I'd figure out the rest. By 3:00 p.m., we'd built a task board with exactly 41 items, 17 of which involved convincing people to work for us without paying them. I texted our designer Noah, who owed me 3 favors and an arm for a homepage redesign, and promised him equity we hadn't even legally authorized yet. He replied, "How soon do you need it?" "Yesterday," I said. The reality of it all was like a freight train of adrenaline barreling down a very unstable track. Every win felt like stealing fire from the gods. Every minute that passed without a call from Paragon's legal team felt like getting away with murder. But I knew the real test was still coming. Sterling wasn't going to sit on his hands. He was going to play nice until he didn't. And that Visionary Brands contract, that was still in play. I wasn't just building a startup. I was entering a race where my opponent had a full tank of gas, a map, and a head start, and I was barefoot, blindfolded, using a slingshot I built in the parking lot. But I had one thing they didn't: desperation with a Wi-Fi connection. Richard looked exactly the same, like a designer hoodie had gained sentience and learned how to calmly explain investment strategies. We met at a place called The Unfiltered Bean, the kind of cafe where the menu was hand-drawn and nobody knew how to make coffee without also performing a brief interpretive dance. He gave me the once-over as I walked in, probably noting the sneakers with a knowing smirk. "Didn't think you'd actually show," he said, setting down a tiny glass of what might have been either cold brew or experimental rocket fuel. "Didn't think I'd have a reason to," I shot back, sliding into the seat across from him. Then someone tried to bury me in a dress code violation. And now, here we are. We did the polite tango. "How have you been?" A quick brag reel, a casual mention of a Series B round he was closing. He waited for me to pitch. I didn't. "I'm not here for money, Richard," I said, cutting through the banter. "I need a name. Specifically, someone at Visionary Brands. Anyone who can get my product in front of Ms. Albright." His eyebrow twitched like I'd asked for top-secret codes. "You know they're in bed with Paragon, right?" "I know they think they are," I said, pulling out my iPad and flipping it toward him. "But I also know Paragon doesn't even understand what Ms. Albright actually wants. They're going to give her a 50-slide proposal with 2 fonts, 3 buzzwords, and 0 genuine insight." He studied the screen, then looked back at me with something that almost resembled respect. "You're not trying to compete on bells and whistles. I'm trying to compete on truth, speed, customization, and pure determination, if we're being honest." I chuckled. "You're either about to change the game or flame out spectacularly." "I like that." Then he leaned in, his voice dropping a notch. "I had lunch with Ms. Albright 2 weeks ago. Off the record, she's fed up. Sick of agencies pitching dreams with PowerPoint. She told me, and I quote, "I want someone to show me they get it. No fluff. Just solve the damn thing." My brain lit up like a slot machine on tilt. "What thing?" I asked, already knowing the answer. She mentioned this odd little brand identity challenge no one's been able to crack. She brought it up at a panel last quarter, and got blank stares from 5 CEOs. I blinked. I'd been at that panel. I'd sat in the back row while Sterling doodled in his notes and whispered that it was too niche to matter. But it did matter, and I had already sketched out a workaround for it 6 months ago, because I actually cared, because I listened, because I'm not some polished suit with a meaningless title. Richard leaned back and sipped his whatever the hell. She hates proposals. You show her something that works, you might just skip the line. I didn't finish my drink. I didn't even pretend to finish it. I stood, shook his hand, and thanked him with the kind of grin you flash right before pulling the pin on a grenade. As I walked out, I opened Slack and DM'd Chloe. "We're not building for the pitch. We're building for the queen." She replied with a single gif of a martial arts master doing a roundhouse kick. The game had changed. Paragon would spend the next 2 weeks preparing binders and buzzwords. We were about to deliver pure brilliance in a bottle. No endless meetings, no corporate fluff, just one woman in sneakers and a serious purpose. Solving a problem her former boss didn't even bother to understand. Chloe's garage smelled like ambition and burnt coffee. There were extension cords running like jungle vines across the floor, a whiteboard propped against a lawn chair, and somewhere under the chaos, I'm pretty sure a cat had set up its own startup. We were knee-deep in what I later dubbed the 7 days of beautiful hell. We weren't just building a product. We were handcrafting a masterpiece in the form of a marketing solution. Every decision we made asked one question. Will this make Ms. Albright say, "Finally," instead of, "Ugh," when she sees it? Our design guy, Noah, lived in Seattle and operated on vampire hours. We promised him 3% equity, our undying loyalty, and a custom hoodie once we could afford merchandise. He accepted without reading the fine print, mostly because Chloe called in the kind of favor that probably came from covering up a minor college prank. Noah delivered like a man possessed. A smooth interface, zero clutter, and a landing screen that made me want to kiss my own application. It was lean, snappy, and custom-built for the exact use case Ms. Albright had passionately described, while corporate executives blinked at her like confused puppies. Meanwhile, I was sleeping in 90-minute bursts on a beanbag shaped like a giant avocado and eating so many pizza bagels, I started hallucinating code and marinara sauce. Chloe's fitness tracker thought she'd joined a cult. Then the email hit my inbox. Subject: your recent departure from Paragon Marketing. Body: Melody, while we respect your decision, we must note that leaving during an internal client presentation without prior notice or transition documentation reflects poorly on your professional record. We will be marking your file accordingly. Mark away, I thought, staring at the screen like it owed me money. I almost replied with a photo of our prototype running flawlessly on 3 devices at once, but I decided to be more productive. I coded until my fingers cramped. I demoed it for Chloe while we microwaved popcorn and used my resignation email as a coaster. I channeled the insult into every line of logic I wrote, every dynamic data hook, every UI animation, every single feature that Paragon would never in a million years prioritize because it wasn't on a meticulously crafted slide deck. And then Friday afternoon, I got a text from Jessica, one of the only people at Paragon who still spoke to me post-defection. Sterling's demo crashed 3 times. He's yelling at the developers like it's their fault, patching the prototype with duct tape and denial. Also, rumor is, Forbes is working on a disruptor feature. Some startup stuff, female founders, that kind of angle. I read it twice. Then I just sat there, legs crossed under Chloe's ping pong table, stunned into silence. Paragon was fumbling. The client was open to disruption. And the press was sniffing around for a story that looked suspiciously like mine. I texted Jessica back one word: timing. She replied, Paragon's final pitch to Ms. Albright is in 2 weeks, which meant we had less than half that time to make our move. I turned to Chloe. It's not just about winning the contract anymore. It's about controlling the narrative. She raised an eyebrow. You mean like a product story? No, I said, grinning like a lunatic. I mean a Forbes cover. We pulled up our old media contact spreadsheet, one we'd built back when we still thought PR firms cared about nobodies. I found the name of a junior journalist who once liked my LinkedIn post about ethical AI in marketing. Chloe dug up Richard's old intro email. And somewhere between refactoring a data stream and replacing a broken spacebar with an external keyboard we jury-rigged from a discount store, we started pitching a story, not just about tech, but about resilience, about how a woman got sent home for wearing sneakers and came back with a product that could eat her former employer alive. Paragon had bureaucracy. We had caffeine, code, and a countdown. Let the war begin. His name was Ethan Reed. Mid-30s, MBA from a top university, profile picture wearing a sleek jacket and holding a reusable cup like it was a brand endorsement. Junior Innovation Specialist at Visionary Brands, a title that screamed, "Let's circle back after Q4." But his LinkedIn said he'd worked under Ms. Albright for 2 years. That meant access. I didn't send a cold email. I liked subtlety better. I commented on one of his posts about digital transformation, messaged him a thoughtful, totally agree with a quote from a book he probably hadn't read, and waited. 2 hours later, he replied with a thumbs up and asked if I was in the space. I said I was working on something disruptive. 3 DMs later, I had a coffee meeting set up for Wednesday at 11:30 at a boutique cafe that served espresso in science beakers and charged extra for oat milk. It was the kind of place that smelled like aged wood and startup hustle. He arrived wearing minimalist sneakers and that tight, polite expression of someone who thought this would be a waste of time, but came anyway, because he might get a LinkedIn story out of it. I didn't pitch. I didn't even talk much. I waited until his second sip of whatever overpriced pour-over he ordered, then pulled out my tablet. "This is live," I said, handing it to him. It addresses the brand identity friction point Ms. Albright flagged at the April conference. He scrolled, paused, scrolled again, then tapped. "This actually works," he said, surprise leaking into his voice like air from a punctured tire. "How?" I shrugged. "We don't have meetings. We have code." He stared at the prototype like it had insulted his entire product team. "We've had Paragon in the loop for 3 months, and they still don't understand what the problem is, let alone how to solve it." I kept my tone breezy. "All I ask is, if you think this has merit, show someone who matters. I'm not looking for handshakes, just eyes on the solution." He looked at me, thoughtful now. Less startup gimmick, more potential asset. "I'll make sure this gets seen by the right person." Bingo. I left him with the tablet and a branded USB drive that definitely didn't have a tracking beacon embedded, probably. Back in Chloe's well-loved sedan, I exhaled like I'd just finished a hostage negotiation. My hands were shaking, but I texted her, "Got a crack in the dam?" While she replied with celebratory flame emojis, I pulled up my email and opened a blank draft to Sarah Davies, junior tech reporter at Forbes, who once wrote a 4,000-word article on blockchain for dog groomers and was clearly hungry for a real story. Subject line: "You don't know me, but Richard Stone does." Body: "Hi Sarah, my name's Melody Clark. I'm building a company that went from what if to launched in less than 3 weeks because of a very public humiliation that accidentally kicked off the most important week of my career. I can't share much yet, but if you're curious, I'll be available next week with proof in hand. Off the record, for now. Let me know, MC." The reply came 5 hours later. "Now this sounds like a story. Let's set something up." I read it twice, then 3 times, like I couldn't believe someone was finally asking about me. The pieces were on the board now. Visionary Brands had a prototype. Forbes had a scent. Sterling had a looming disaster dressed in bullet points and wishful thinking. I leaned back in the seat, the car's AC sputtering warm air against my face, and let myself smile for the first time in days. I hadn't won yet, but for the first time, I wasn't playing catch-up. I was setting the pace. The email came in at 7:42 a.m., On a Monday, buried between a failed build alert and a spammy invite to a Founders of Faith breakfast, I'm 99% sure was trying to convert me via gluten-free muffins. Subject: Presentation request, Visionary Brands. From Office of C. Albright. Body: Ms. Albright has reviewed your prototype. She would like a formal walkthrough this Thursday at 2 p.m. You will have 45 minutes. Presentation materials not required in advance. Location and access credentials to follow. I reread it 5 times, then screamed so loud Chloe thought I'd fried the database. She wants a presentation, I said, pacing in tight circles in our glorified shoebox of an office, while Noah, bleary-eyed from his 4th all-nighter, muttered something about dying happy now. 2 days. I had 48 hours to compress every ounce of thought, sweat, and focused determination into a pitch for the woman who didn't want frills, just solutions. I started shaking. It wasn't fear, not entirely. It was the weight of everything. Every condescending meeting, every time someone called me detail-oriented like it was an insult, every smug "that's not how we do things here" from a guy with a flip phone and a golf calendar. She was giving me a chance, one shot. And Paragon, they weren't even scheduled until the following week. We'd cut the line. The universe cracked open a second time at noon when Sarah Davies emailed to confirm our Forbes interview the day after the pitch. Now I had 2 back-to-back gut checks lined up like some karmic American Ninja Warrior course. Impress a CEO who hates corporate theater, then sell the story of how I got here to the biggest tech outlet in the country. We shut the office for everything except prep. Noah prepped a new build with 0 lag load speeds and an onboarding flow so intuitive it practically read minds. Chloe drilled me with mock questions so brutal I started sweating when she looked at me sideways. We tore apart our original deck, slashed anything that smelled like buzzword salad, and rebuilt the story from scratch. Not just what we built, but why. A product forged out of humiliation and focused intent, tailored not to chase enterprise trends, but to solve the damn problem exactly how Ms. Albright had urged. By Tuesday night, we were running on fumes and vending machine chips, and I still hadn't figured out what the hell I was going to wear. That answer came during the prep call with Ms. Albright's assistant, a woman with the voice of someone who didn't suffer fools or missed calendar invites. After we confirmed tech specs and timing, she added almost offhand, Ms. Albright appreciates punctuality and, let's say, practical attire. We've had a few overdressed peacocks lately. I stared at the screen for a beat. Chloe smirked from across the room. You're wearing the sneakers, aren't you? You're damn right I'm wearing the sneakers. They had become more than shoes. They were the battle flag, the line in the sand, the symbol of everything Sterling tried to reduce me to and everything I refused to let die in that conference room. Thursday was coming fast. The pitch, the interview, the reckoning, and I wasn't walking in as someone begging to be noticed. I was walking in as the answer they'd been looking for. The elevator ride to the 27th floor felt like the final ascent of a roller coaster, the kind where you can hear the clinks of the chain and your own heartbeat fighting for dominance. Chloe gave my shoulder a squeeze as the doors opened. Don't forget to breathe. Breathing's for people not about to nuke a Fortune 500 contract from inside a blazer and stylish sneakers. We stepped into the glass and steel cathedral that was Visionary Brands HQ. The receptionist, who looked like she moonlighted as an AI model, directed us to Conference Room Nova. Real subtle tech overlords. Ms. Albright was already there when we walked in. She didn't stand, didn't smile, just nodded once, slow and assessing. Her team flanked her like generals, buttoned up, tablet tapping, resting disapproval face types. I'd spent so long imagining this moment that it felt weirdly small. Just a room, just a table, just people. But I didn't come to be small. I came in wearing the same pair of sneakers Sterling exiled me for. The same ones that carried every line of code, every missed social event, every energy drink headache, every no that led to this. topped with a sharp navy blazer and a crisp white shirt. I didn't look like rebellion. I looked like inevitability. Ms. Albright gestured to begin. No small talk, no slide deck. I pulled out my tablet, mirrored it to the screen, and started walking them through the prototype. Not a pitch, not a sales monologue, a story. I told them how it started, a throwaway line at a tech panel that no one listened to except me. I told them how that problem had haunted me because it was real, how I built a solution that didn't rely on 10-month onboarding cycles or 17 compliance reviews. I showed them live data, real-time responsiveness, a stripped-down interface designed for utility, not just flashy branding. Then I said it plainly. Paragon will offer you a prettier presentation. They'll promise a team of 12 consultants in 6 months to launch. We built this in 21 days from the ground up. No endless meetings, no silos, just engineers and pure drive. One of the suits asked about scalability. I answered before he finished the question. Another asked about security protocols. Chloe jumped in with a precision answer that would have made an auditor weep with joy. But Ms. Albright, she barely looked at the screen. She watched me, and when it was over, when the last frame of our demo faded out and the room fell into that awkward post-performance silence, she said just one thing. If we sign with you, who's my point of contact? I didn't blink, didn't pause. You're looking at her. Miss Albright smiled, just barely, just enough. The rest of the meeting was formality. We shook hands, exchanged cards, got the classic, "We'll be in touch soon." I knew I'd nailed it. I didn't need their confirmation because I didn't just show them a solution. I showed them that I was the opposite of what they hated about big vendors. I was the answer to their fatigue, wearing the shoes that corporate America tried to shame me for. Back in the elevator, Chloe was practically vibrating. Holy moly, Melody, you crushed it! I nodded. Not smug, just settled. I think we just killed a dinosaur. Now all we had to do was survive the next 24 hours before Forbes knocked on the door and asked me to explain how the extinction happened. The email hit my inbox at 6:18 a.m. on a Monday with the subject line, "Contract Executed." I stared at it for a full minute, mouth open, coffee forgotten. I opened the PDF, and there it was in all its elegant font glory. A multi-million-dollar contract from visionary brands, signed, sealed, and countersigned with a tidy digital signature from C. Albright herself. The number at the bottom made my stomach flip. It was bigger than we'd pitched, bigger than I'd even let myself imagine. Ms. Albright didn't just say yes, she bet heavy. I burst into Chloe's room like a caffeinated banshee, waving the phone. She signed! She signed! Chloe blinked from under a blanket like she couldn't tell if this was real life or a hallucination brought on by sleep deprivation and too many energy bars. Then she screamed too. Then we both screamed. The neighbors probably thought someone died. Someone did. Just not the way they thought. By 9:30, I was walking into the Forbes building with the kind of calm you earn after surviving a 3-week business crucible. I wore the sneakers again, this time with a crisp button-down, sleeves rolled, and a face that said, "Ask me what I just did." Go on. Sarah Davies met me in the lobby, wiry, over-caffeinated, and vibrating with journalist energy. I've been dying to hear the full thing. Let's go. They brought me to a studio-style room with cameras I pretended not to notice and a couch that looked like it belonged in a startup founder's loft. So, Sarah said, cracking open a notebook. Walk me through it. Start from the beginning. So I did. I told them about Paragon marketing, about the beige walls and the bland meetings and the safe expectations. I told them about Sterling, the condescension, the quiet theft of credit, the Friday where my sneakers became a corporate sin. I told them about the garage, the pizza, the prototype, the race against the dinosaur. I didn't cry. I didn't soften the edges. I told it straight. The initial frustration wasn't fresh anymore. It was forged into something stronger, something precise, something like pride. Sarah just listened, barely wrote. The recorder did all the work. When I showed them the signed contract on my phone, they let out a low whistle. You took Sterling's contract? In 3 weeks. I nodded. You realize this isn't just a founder story. It's a comeback story. I know, I said. That's what makes it honest. Sarah leaned forward. We're going to run this hard. Probably a feature. Front page of digital, possibly print, depending on the layout. Then came the question. We need a great photo for the cover. What do you have in mind? I grinned, already seeing it in my head. I want it in the garage by the server rack. Me in the sneakers. Blazer optional. Sarah lit up. Poetic and powerful. Exactly, I said, because the comeback wasn't about screaming. It wasn't about rubbing their faces in it. It was about showing up in the same shoes they sent me home for and proving they were wrong about everything. 3 weeks to the hour after Sterling told me to go home and dress like a professional, I woke up to find my face staring back at me from a magazine rack in the checkout line of a convenience store. There I was, leaning against Chloe's makeshift server rack, blazer slightly rumpled, sneakers unapologetic, laptop in hand with the Spark Creative logo glowing like a powerful statement in HTML. The headline wrapped it all in a bow. Designed for disruption. How Melody's Spark Creative snatched a $50 million contract in 21 days. I bought 3 copies, not because I needed them, but because it felt like stealing home plate with a triumphant shout. I left one on a park bench just to spread the message. By 10 a.m., the article was viral. LinkedIn, Twitter, Slack threads I still had ghost access to. My phone lit up like it owed me a favor. Messages from college professors, old clients, a cousin I hadn't heard from since she tried to sell me pyramid schemes, all saying the same thing. You did it. But the one that hit me like a shot of espresso to the soul came from Jessica, the only real friend I had left behind at Paragon. First text, an image. It was Sterling, standing in the Paragon marketing break room, holding my Forbes cover, his mouth agape, his tie askew. He looked like someone had just informed him that gravity wasn't real, and also his car had been towed. Second text. He canceled the all-hands meeting, floors silent, HR's pretending they can't read. I'm pretty sure someone slow clapped. I stared at the photo, at the man who sent me home for sneakers while he pitched my work to a client he never understood, the man who told me I didn't belong in the room. He was holding the proof that I didn't just belong. I ran the damn room. I didn't reply. Nothing needed to be said. I was sitting in our new office, modest, sunlit, smelling faintly of fresh paint and takeout. No receptionist, no glass walls, just desks, cables, and the faint hum of our first real server stack coming to life. Chloe walked in holding 2 coffees and a look that said, You're going to want to see this, but I already knew. We didn't celebrate. We didn't scream. We just nodded because this was never about fireworks. It was about the quiet, perfect symmetry of it all. The slight, the exile, the triumphant comeback. I looked out the window, the city sprawling beyond the glass, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was proving anything. I was building. And the ruins behind me, they could keep their dress code. Melody's story isn't just a personal victory. It's a powerful testament to the strength of resilience and self-belief. The lessons here are clear. Don't let small obstacles define your worth. Melody being dismissed over something as minor as sneakers shows how rigid rules or others' narrow perspectives can sometimes stifle talent. However, instead of accepting being undervalued, Melody transformed the humiliation into a spectacular affirmation of her capabilities. Turned disadvantages into advantages. Pushed out of her comfort zone, Melody leveraged every resource and moment to build her dream. This illustrates that sometimes Unexpected shocks or setbacks can be powerful catalysts to discover true potential and create breakthroughs. Listen to your client, not just follow procedures. Melody's success stemmed from genuinely listening to and understanding Ms. Albright's core problem, a detail Paragon Marketing overlooked. This is a crucial lesson about the importance of focusing on real solutions, rather than just adhering to processes or buzzword-filled trends. Build a strong personal brand. Melody not only created a great product, but also told an inspiring story about her journey. Her appearance on Forbes in her sneakers and blazer became a symbol of disruption and unwavering spirit, forging a strong and authentic personal brand. The positive message to the audience is, believe in yourself and your talents, even when others try to diminish you. Don't be afraid to take bold steps and use challenges as springboards to achieve something greater. Sometimes, a little well-timed rebellion can open doors to success you never imagined.